So good. It's my favorite. Rocky 4 is my favorite movie.
Rocky 4 is your favorite movie?
Love it. Love it.
What happened to Rocky 1, 2, and 3?
Na, na, na. I just like that. I thought Rocky 4 was the best one. A lot of people think that. That's not a hot take.
I haven't really watched them.
Welcome into Scoop City. I'm the athletic senior NFL insider, Dianna Russini.
And I'm Chase Daniel, played 14 years in the NFL.
Well, Chase, we're going to have to wait for the first three-peat as the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely dominated the Kansas City Chiefs. It was an absolute scene on the field after this win. I can only imagine what it would have been like if the game was actually close. I mean, we figured, halfway through the second quarter, it was over.
It was an embarrassment. Right after he threw the pick six to Cooper DeJean, it was 17-0, and I'm like, oh boy, this doesn't feel like normal Chiefs comebacks and come from behind. They were getting whooped in the trenches all game long.
Yep, a dominant performance by Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, the defense, just an entire team effort with just no explosive plays from the Chiefs, turnovers all over, and it was pretty evident that this Chiefs offensive line could not handle this Philadelphia Eagles defense. We're going to get into everything of the game, right? I think I want to dive into the stuff that stood out to you now that we've had a few hours to like let it sit, to digest it. And there's other news around the league too, of course, because the news never stops. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets parting ways. Of course, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Surprise, surprise. But they made headlines. And also, your good friend, and I think now my really good friend, Drew Brees, stopped by the show during the week, and we had a chance to talk about things that we were going to expect in the game. But I wanted to play for you the conversation that we had about you. Okay,
Yeah, he's probably talking shit.
A little shit, but good shit. He was really honest about who you are as a guy, but also how competitive you both are. Which, because you guys are both competitive, I'm curious to see if you are going to check out the Connections Sports Edition that we now have at The Athletic. You have to go check it out. It's brand new. I saw it on the Today Show, actually. They were promoting it. And if you like sports trivia, you got to go check this out. I think we'll put ourselves to the test at some point here. I know that you don't think you're good at Jeopardy, but no. I wonder if you'd be good with sports trivia.
Maybe. Depends on how far it goes back.
Depends. I think I'd smoke you. But first, let's get right to this. Here's what I'm hearing around the league. Well, Chase, I want to start with my biggest takeaway from that game. And can you shotgun a beer? Because apparently, if you're going to win the Super Bowl, you got to be able to do it. Did you see that?
I can shotgun a beer. In fact, that was really fast. I feel like I could beat him. I'll be honest.
Chase, it was like 30, not even. It was 3 seconds.
Yeah,
I was like, is there a...
It was like 2.5 seconds.
It was unbelievable.
So yeah.
Right?
I'm sure there was a lot of that happening.
There was tons. I've already unpacked some of my suitcase and my clothes and the suit I wore on Sunday night.
Smell like booze?
Smells like booze. It's like a mix of champagne and cigars because the cigars were lit within seconds. But I had an opportunity to talk to really all the stars from up at the top with Howie Roseman to Nick Sirianni. And we really dove into what this year was like. And we talked to A.J. Brown. We talked to Lane Johnson, Saquon Barkley. And my biggest takeaway from talking to them, now that they've won, is that it's very obvious that this was not an easy season from them. We talked so much about the disconnect and some of the problems that they were having, but no one really knew what it was. And I still don't know if we will truly understand what Philadelphia was going through as they were winning. But in almost every interview I did, it was apparent that this team was really proud of how they were able to ride the ship and get to New Orleans and absolutely demolish the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. I mean, the Eagles, you got to start talking about them as one of the better teams, like an all-time great team, because they can it can look like something on the field, right? I think they won 16 of their last 17 games. Wild stat. They started 2-2. But then behind the scenes, right, you have the A.J. Brown stuff. You have the Jalen Hurts stuff. You have the straight jacket comments. You have Nick Sirianni. He started 2-2, and everyone's like, he needs to be fired. The decisions he's making is horrible. And we were one of them. We were right on that train too, because it didn't look well. It didn't look good. And then when he shaved his head, it's like he shedded everything off him. He's like, I could care less about what anyone else thinks. He goes on. They win a Super Bowl. He's been to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years, which is crazy as a head coach, right? And ended off with a win. And of all, like I played for Philly, right? And Philly, the husband, you got balloons in your background, you got fly eagles fly in your front yard, you got all this stuff. But the year I played, the fans are harsh, and they're really, really tough on players. It's because they say it's because they love you. I think it's different than that. But to actually go through a season with all this talk about you, with all the media about you, with everything like that, and then to stand on the mountain and the team you beat too, which by the way, we're talking about like one of the greatest dynastic runs in the history of the game, and you absolutely demolished them. Like it wasn't even close. So kudos to Nick Sirianni, kudos to Jalen Hurts, man, and the Eagles. Like I'm excited about it, and I'm proud of them for withstanding all the outside noise, us included.
And we were critical because I don't think you and I were respecting the emotional intelligence, right? We didn't like that
or the
coming
leadership
from the head coach. Yeah, it seemed that was going to hold him back. Yeah. He was always the X factor to me this season of, is he going to be the reason they lose? So I asked him about what he learned about not just his team, but himself. Because you're right, he shaved the head and something changed. So here's Nick Sirianni on how he reflects on his own growth as the Eagles head coach.
It's the greatest team sport there is, and you can't be great without the greatness of others. I've said it about 30 times today already. It takes everybody. That's why I laugh sometimes. They're like, hey, well, they're so stacked as a team. That's what good football teams do. Right? Good football teams are stacked as teams, and we're a stacked team, and it took every bit of us, and it took all our players, it took all our coaches, it took Howie in the front office, it took everybody, Mr. Lori, the whole organization. So it's the best team sport there is. You can't be great without the greatness of others.
What was the growing moment for you? What was it this year for you?
The daily grind. The daily grind. All the hard work, that's what you remember. We'll remember this, but it was the ups and downs. Embracing the adversity and getting better from the adversity. I think one thing is when you go through adversity, when you go through criticism, because you have to hear it sometimes when you do the media, that's something that I can always teach my kids when they go through adversity for the rest of their lives. I'm grateful for the adversity. This team's grateful for the adversity. They're the best, right? You can still win championships with the run game and defense and a great pass game as well.
So it's pretty obvious that he's aware his strength is often his weakness, right? Like he's reflected on the fact that it's not perfect, and he's had to make adjustments himself and battle through dealing with Philadelphia as well, and dealing with the pressure and dealing with the voices and opinions that he can't do this. And my biggest takeaway on Sirianni in general has been he may not be a top 5 head coach in football despite the record and the fact that all he does is win, but he's the right head coach for this Philadelphia Eagles team.
Yeah. He's got that inner excellence within him. You see what I did there? No, he's the leadership aspect, because when he sort of transition to a CEO type coach, because even last year he had a little bit more say in the offense probably than what he led on. And then you go in, Howie and him bring in Kellen Moore, and they bring in Vic Fangio, and he can really just take a step back. He doesn't have to worry about offense. He doesn't have to worry about defense. He doesn't have to worry about such teams, and just control the team as a whole and find the messaging that cuts through to these guys. Because these guys, it's not an easy team to get through to when you have that many superstars, and only a certain person can actually find ways to get these superstar players, because they're like a dream team. Like, they're the most talented team. We were talking about today on our show, on the Fox show, that they're like probably one of the most true, just talented teams, 1-53, that we've seen in some time. And so when you have those talent, you have like these superstar players, right? Jalen Hurts, $50+ million a year. You got Saquon Barkley, who had the best season in the history of running backs. You have Lane Johnson, you have Myles, you have, Darius Slay, all these big personalities, AJ Brown, right? Huge personalities, superstar mentalities, and to keep this group together to win 16 of the last 17 games, it's a fantastic job.
Well, former Philadelphia Eagle great Brian Westbrook was talking to me on the field about that idea of, is this the best Philadelphia Eagles roster we've ever seen? So here's some of that conversation.
This team isn't perfect. They went through some stuff this year. How do you think they were able to ride it and figure it out to get to this position?
Well, they have great leaders. It starts with their coach. How he assembled this team. Nick Sirianni continues to coach this team. Then you look at the leaders of this team: Lane, Saquon, Jalen. Look on the defensive line. You're talking about Brandon Graham. Some of these young guys that continue to get it done. You look in the back line, they have Slay, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They have so many people that get it done. They have leaders. Then they got young guys that continue to get it done.
And the young guys were making plays today. Look at Cooper DeJean.
That's what it's about.
Goes out there.
That's what it's about.
He's never going to forget that for the rest of his life.
Doggone right. As he should.
Yeah.
Playing an interception, a play in the Super Bowl, that's what it's all about.
Brian, do you think this is the most talented roster that the Eagles have ever had in their organization?
From player 0 to player 53, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, so much talent across the board. They're doing a great job.
All right, to just wrap up the Philadelphia side to all of this, and I feel like we could still keep going, but I felt like now's the right time after a full season of you doing a lot of work and an analyzing of Jalen Hurts' game and really leaning into his growth the last few weeks, especially with the performance he gave in the NFC Championship game and then in the Super Bowl to win. What is your last word on Jalen Hurts now that you've seen what he's done?
Look, I believe that as new information comes in, you can change your opinion based on that. And the way he's played at the two biggest games of his career, on the two biggest stages of this game at football, NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, he's played lights out. Like I went back and watched the Super Bowl game. Quite honestly, he played a perfect game other than one throw. And the one throw, probably shouldn't have thrown it, probably just should have ate it, kick a field goal, all that stuff. And that throw was the interception. But when you really study it, he was letting one-on-one balls go early in that game. The OPI that they said got called back on A.J. Brown, that was a dime. There's another back shoulder to A.J. Brown. There's a scramble out of the pocket, throw down the sideline to Saquon Barkley. There's what I thought was the biggest throw of Jalen Hurts' career. It's a play-action dime shot to Devontae Smith on a post down the middle of the field. He made the throws when the throws were there. And what I loved about it was he actually used his legs outside of called runs. So there was a couple scrambles here and there. I mean, 72 rushing yards. It's the most in the history of the game for a quarterback in a Super Bowl. So he made them pay on third downs, money downs when they're doubling A.J. Brown or they're doubling Devontae Smith. No one's spying him. They didn't really spy him much this game. And even when they did, he outran Nick Bolton, number 32 for the Chiefs. So I just love the way he's played. I think that he's on a path right now that a lot of quarterbacks aren't on and haven't been on, right? He's 1-1 in Super Bowls. He's one of 5 quarterbacks under the age of 26 to play in Super Bowls. That's wild to me. There's been 59 Super Bowls. There's only been 35 quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl. And Jalen Hurts is in that same breath. He also has a second-team All-Pro. Super Bowl MVP, second-team All-Pro. I think he's changing sort of how sports media, how people view the quarterback position a little bit. Because yes, he does have a dream team around him, but he doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't throw interceptions. And in the biggest games of his career, even the loss to the Chiefs in this first Super Bowl, 4 touchdowns. He has 7 touchdowns in 2 Super Bowl games. So you got to start putting respect on his name. Kudos to Jalen Hurts.
I think this is where you have to give Jalen Hurts credit. He plays big in the big moments. Isn't that what separates the elite quarterbacks from the rest? When it's time to win, he is playing his best football. Who cares what's going on in week 3? Who cares that he looked just pedestrian against the Green Bay Packers early in the season. He looked elite in the NFC Championship game and here in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And that's a great point by you, Dianna, because that's what sort of came to my mind when I rewatched it a second time. And it's like, he's doing this in the Super Bowl. Like, he played pretty much a perfect game in the Super Bowl versus the 4th-ranked defense. And it brings to mind exactly what you're saying. Like, Josh Allen hasn't performed. Lamar Jackson hasn't performed. Joe Burrow hasn't performed. Those are probably, those 3 quarterbacks behind Mahomes are top 4 in the league, and they haven't got it done. So it's almost as like, well, why haven't you done it, Josh? Why haven't you done it, Lamar? Why haven't you done it, Joe Burrow? Because they haven't. I mean, Joe got to the game at least, but he hasn't won a Super Bowl. And so I think that just brings into the conversation, like, man, you just got to respect and honor what Jalen's doing, because he does have a lot of haters. Do I think the haters are going to go away? No, I don't. But when you throw for 125 yards a game and you don't hit your receivers, and all of a sudden you're able to turn it on for the NFC Championship game, you can't say anything because it's the biggest game of the year. And in the Super Bowl too, it's like, it's crazy.
Well, you know who always turns it on? It's Patrick Mahomes, right? He's always the one playing his best football in the big moments. And this was the worst game we've ever seen from Patrick Mahomes since he's been in the NFL.
That's not being hyperbolic either. That is
it's not.
A very, very much of a fact.
Before we dive into the Chiefs, I do want to play A.J. Brown's thoughts on Patrick Mahomes and his own quarterback, because I really liked the way he showed respect to Mahomes, but also is acknowledging that his quarterback needs to be in the same conversation of the great quarterbacks.
That's a good team. That's a good quarterback. He's probably the best quarterback in the game, and we just made him look average. And we know he's not average.
What about your quarterback?
Man, unbelievable. Hell of a game, man. Hell of a game. Poised, all game, in control, dimes. Man, he played his butt off.
So you heard him say Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league, but the Eagles defense just made him look very average. So what
Hold
happened?
on. That's wild to say. Like, you're thinking, he was respectful. I love it. I don't mind it at all, because Mahomes, but he's calling Mahomes, they made him look average. They made him look below average, but oh my gosh, that's crazy.
When did you realize in this game that everything was off for the Chiefs? Like, was there a moment where you were like, oh boy?
Absolutely. And there was a 3-play sequence in the second quarter where the Chiefs had the ball back in their 10-yard line, 15-yard line. And there was a 3-play series, a sequence in order. It went sack, pick six. They went up 17-0 at that point, and the sacks were bad sacks. They had Travis Kelce blocking Josh Sweat on back-to-back plays. The first play looked like a miscommunication. Travis Kelce didn't even try to block him. Josh Sweat runs scot-free, sack. 2nd and 14. The very next play, Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco go to double team him. Josh Sweat swims inside, sack. Mahomes reads the wrong side. He's trying to throw a hitch route. He should be throwing it to the field. Reads the wrong side, gets happy feet. And then 3rd and 14, I really haven't this year seen Patrick Mahomes force a football. It was an absolute force to, I think it was DeAndre Hopkins coming across. Cooper DeJean baited a rookie on his birthday. A rookie baited Patrick Mahomes into throwing the ball back. I can't even say it. But he baited, throwing back across his body. And that 3-play sequence, down 17-0, they'd only run 3 run plays up to that point. They had 3 rushing attempts. In the second quarter, I was like, oh man, they're in trouble. It just does not feel the same.
As soon as I saw him pressing in the first quarter, I started to get worried. It's hard to ever doubt him, but he was starting to do those things that I saw him do in the Super Bowl in Tampa when their offensive line was
very much the same,
completely obliterated, right? They had zero protection in that Super Bowl that they lost. And I think that this Chiefs team, as well coached as they are, went out there and within the first few minutes of this game going up against the Eagles went, damn, they are bigger and stronger. And I think Patrick saw it. which is why we saw him running around like a lunatic trying to win this. So he says, we're going to be back, right? He tweeted a few hours after the game, actually. Like, you know, we're going to be able to get back here. So do you believe him? Do you think the Chiefs are going to be able to get back? Or is this a worry for you that this could be the end to this run, knowing that they've got a lot of work to do in terms of boosting them back up?
It's not even close to the end of the run. They're still in the middle of the dynasty. 3 Super Bowl wins in 6 years. I mean, they are the dynasty. Look, they lost. I get it. Patrick Mahomes 3-2 in Super Bowls. I get it. In both his Super Bowls, he looked average. And what was the number one thing in both Super Bowls? It was pressure on him. When he gets pressure on him, and you're able to play this too high shell coverage with a safety over the top of both receivers, Travis Kelce, you get pressure on Patrick Mahomes. He looks like this. And look, I will say, like, the Chiefs won 17, 18 games in a row, or consecutive games in a row, and by one score possessions, right? And so they were sort of playing with house money here, because if you really look at it, they overachieved on the offensive skill player side. They had some average skill players, because Xavier Worthy weren't sure what he was. Rashee Rice out. Travis Kelce didn't even have 900 yards receiving. I think he had 3 total touchdowns. And you know, they were trying to make some stuff happen. In reality was they weren't putting up a ton of points. They had to go on long drives this year on the offensive side of the ball, and that had to do with Patrick Mahomes' decision-making. Well, and the other part was their offensive line. Their offensive line struggled. You move an all-pro, Pro Bowl guy out to left tackle because you can't handle the left tackle you drafted in Kingsley Sumatia. Not great. You have injuries somewhere else. You bench Wanya Morris, and you have to move him out there. Then it leaves a hole in the interior, and you saw Jalen Carter go to work against him, Milton Williams as well. And so when you look at those things, like, man, it was like the only way to beat the Chiefs, Dianna, is you have to blow them out. Like, you can't let them stick around, because when they stick around, they're just too good in these tight game situations. They'll find a way to win. It just felt different from the second series on offense for the Chiefs. And that's
we talked about it last show. We talked about, can this Chiefs offense keep up with the Eagles offense? And it was apparent right away they could not. We knew going into this was going to be a battle of strength versus strategy. And during the game, I felt like it became strength and strategy. They were out-coached.
Yeah.
When have we ever said that Andy Reid and that this coaching staff could be out-coached? I still think the Chiefs' defense, despite the fact that the Eagles scored a lot of points, they were playing well.
Yeah. I mean, Dianna, if you tell me, like, Spags, to just your point real quick, if you tell me that the Chiefs defense is going to hold Saquon to under 60 yards rushing and is going to hold A.J. Brown to not a lot of yards receiving, and he won't be the leading receiver, and to make Jalen Hurts beat you, you'd say they got a chance and they're going to win, right? And just I thought the defense played well, to your point.
Yeah. You've been on the Chiefs all year. Like, you picked them as a winner.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think that they would look this bad?
I didn't think they would look this bad from a schematic standpoint. I was a little upset. Not upset. Like, disappointed in just the play calling. I think because you didn't really chip or nudge tight. What that means is, like, that 4-man rush, right? You have 5 offensive linemen. You have a 4-man rush. Like, put Travis Kelce or Isaiah Pacheco on those defensive ends to slow down They didn't do any of that. It was all drop back. There was no run game. They just sort of got out coached. They got out dueled. They got out energied. Like, where was the energy on the sideline? Like, the look on Travis Kelce's face and the look on Patrick Mahomes' face after the 3rd series of the game, it was hopelessness, right? And I think it was just one of those things. There's no energy.
Since we're talking Philly, we might as well use their favorite movie as the analogy for this game, where Philly, in this case, was Drago from Rocky IV, and the Kansas City Chiefs were Apollo Creed. You know, in the opening scene when Drago pounds Apollo's hands and goes, "I must break you."
School, son. Come on, get your hands up, man. You need an interpreter? It's time to go to school. You will lose.
Well, he killed him. And that's what it felt like. They just looked outmatched. The strength was so obviously bigger, and the talent. And that's why I think, despite the fact that the Chiefs have always figured out ways to win because of Patrick. I think we may be hitting a time where Patrick can't just do it himself, and they're going to have to find these pieces if they want to return to the Super Bowl next year in San Francisco.
We've never seen a Chiefs team look like this, though. I think that just speaks volumes to Philly and what they were able to do, and that's another thing too. It's like, you asked me, and I wanted to hit this in there. It's like, hey, where do the Chiefs go from here? Well, do you remember, Dianna, a couple years ago when the Chiefs offensive line, now they were out their right tackle and their left tackle against Tampa, they got absolutely whooped up and down the sideline, yada, yada. I think Brett Veach, he's going to fix this. And do you remember, right, after they got beat by Brady in the Bucs, front office responded by signing Joe Thuney. They traded for Orlando Brown Jr. They drafted Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. They are into fixing what the issue is. But then it's like, well, what if Travis Kelce walks away? Okay, you're going to have to replace an all-time great tight end. You have free agents, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, DeAndre Hopkins. Yes, Rashee Rice is coming back off injury, and I thought Xavier Worthy really, really played well. But then you have like your guys at homegrown, right? That Brett Veach is used to doing and drafting. You have Nick Bolton, you have Trey Smith, Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis. They're all set for free. How are you going to re-sign all these guys? But I just come back to saying, hey, as long as you have the cornerstone pieces, and that's a quarterback in Patrick Mahomes and the head coach in Andy Reid, they are still going to be the Chiefs.
But Brett Veach still has a lot to do this offseason. And just like he did after they lost. Just how after they lost to Tampa, he went up to Patrick right after the game and was like, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to get you a better O-line. And so we'll see what they'll be able to do.
Don't you feel like, Dianna, real quick before we move, don't you feel like they need a true number one receiver? I know they feel like Rashee Rice is that. Don't you feel like they need like a true guy? Like, what if A.J. Brown was on the Chiefs, right? Like, I know they're not going to pay that kind of money, but I feel like this is the year with all those impending free agents. I know they're happy with Worthy. I know they're happy with Rice. If they are able to add a true number one guy like that dude, it just makes sense to me.
Yeah, this was the game where it makes you look back on the Tyreek Hill trade. And, we understood why they did it. I remember at the time criticizing it because they had so much success in their offense with Tyreek. But this could have been the game where, you're right, this could have elevated and given them a shot, an opportunity, instead of just forcing and making it try to work with Travis, who, as we know, is aging. Chase, outside the big game and discussing it and breaking it down, there's other NFL news we got to get to. So let's take a quick break, and when we get back, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Well, we'll leave it to the Jets to try to maneuver their way into the big Sunday morning splash with Jay Glazer reporting that Aaron Rodgers was informed by the New York Jets that the Jets are going to be moving on. And obviously, we are not surprised by that. We've been talking about this on the show for months. And we've also been discussing how, most of the candidates that were interviewing for that Jets job had suggested to the organization, hey, if I get this job, I'm going to do this without Aaron Rodgers. And obviously that appears to be Aaron Glenn's thought process on this as well. And I was told that when they had conversations with Aaron Rodgers about what the future would look like, if you're going to be part of this team, you're going to attend all of the training camp. You're not going to do Pat McAfee interviews anymore. So they were really trying to change the way.
They said that?
Yeah. They had a conversation with him of, if you were to stay here, here's how we would want it to be. So this, to me, is Aaron Glenn getting control back. And Glenn making sure that...
Who said that to him?
The GM and the head coach, when they had these conversations of, look, I think it's Aaron Glenn that's the one pushing for, I'm holding everyone accountable, and every single person on this team is going to be treated the same way.
So do you think that if he would have agreed to not do that stuff, that he would have been their quarterback? Or do you think he was just thinking like, I don't want to be controlled. I don't want to be put in a box. This is fast. I knew none of this. And this is extremely fascinating to me hearing you say that.
I think that no matter what the Jets were going to say, Aaron Rodgers wanted to move on. I mean, this is something that I knew about.
So
weeks
Rodgers
ago.
himself. So he went up there to hear him out, but you're thinking that probably like.
Do
hey,
I think it's just like anything else. You want to listen, right? Like I think he was smart to talk to the Jets and say, all right, where do we stand? How does this work? And maybe if they were on the side of maybe convincing him more, this could have changed. But this wasn't the way it was when they traded for him, where, it was exciting.
He was the GM pretty much.
He was the GM. Yeah, he's the GM no more. So that just brings us to who will be the Jets quarterback this season, because there are some that are making the argument of, well, why would you just not keep him? You're paying him. He's still under contract, and you're going to need a veteran quarterback anyway. Obviously, the other side of it is he's too divisive, and he could be a distraction, and he hasn't brought all the things that the Jets were hoping for.
And that outweighs his play, in my opinion, especially with a new head coach, right? If Aaron Rodgers wants to play, I'm like, if I'm Aaron Glenn, do I want a guy who is probably pretty well liked in the locker room? Like, it might be different outside, but do I want him undermining the vision that I have for this Jets team? It's an easy no for me, right? And it's like, well, the Jets still need a quarterback. So do you feel like they would probably draft somebody? Because what are they picking? 7? Are they picking 7?
They pick 7th in this upcoming draft. I don't believe so. I think they obviously know they've got other areas. Why not go with Tyrod Taylor? He's your bridge quarterback. Until you can sort out which direction you want to go in, and it's going to be interesting.
So you think they're going to be good with just going with Tyrod?
No, I don't think they're going to be good doing that. I just don't know.
But
if
the veteran market, they're not going to be on Sam Darnold. What about?
No,
yeah,
that would be a great story though.
How
Imagine
funny
they
would
bring
that
Sam
be?
Darnold back.
Can you imagine them bringing Sam Darnold back, paying him $30 million?
Like, we just had you. You were just here.
Could you imagine that? I mean, look, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, in my opinion, probably top 3. Are any of those guys worth drafting? No. So you probably know it's going to be a rebuild year with a veteran type guy. I mean, the Tyrod situation is interesting to me. I just don't know. There's just not many people out there. They're going to have to rely on run game and defense, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So does Garrett Wilson want to be there, a part of the rebuild?
So there have been whispers that he may not want to be part of the Jets, but we'll see if that's just talk, right? Because I think when you're frustrated and you're losing, the immediate response is, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to be part of this
100%.
organization. So I think sometimes when people kind of take some time in the offseason and think about what's next, what's best for them, and maybe Aaron Glenn could have some good influence here, because that's going to be part of his job, is getting this Jets team to reconnect and back on the tracks towards winning. And that's what I think is a strength. Like, that's why they hired Aaron Glenn. So he's going to have to do the mop-up. I have another question. Yes, Chase.
Because I can feel because we've been doing this show for a while, I feel like you want to move on, but this is a big topic.
You never want to talk about the Jets.
I do. I do now. Off-season Jets are the best Jets. Let's be real about it. Does Aaron Rodgers? Do you think that Aaron Rodgers continues playing? Or do you think his career is done? Do you think first of all, do you think he himself wants to play? And do you think, second part, do you think another team will want him?
Yeah, I have a hard time believing that Aaron Rodgers would want the end of his career to be the way it went down with the New York Jets with the injury. I think he still has the passion to play, and I would not be surprised if he continues playing. I think the chance of him playing definitely outweigh the chances of him retiring. So it's just going to be a matter of where does he land? He's going to want to go to a team that is close to winning, a team that has really good leadership considering what he just went through in terms of ownership down.
But what teams need? Titans, Browns, Giants?
Well, you have teams that have quarterback situations with their current ones, right? Like Matthew Stafford and the Rams.
Could he go to the Steelers? Could you imagine him with Mike Tomlin? Sorry, I cut you off on this Stafford thing.
And
that
George
just popped
Pickens.
in my head. What?
Yeah, I have a hard time.
Sorry, what were you saying about Stafford?
And I don't think that would work either, because Arthur Smith, who interviewed for the Jets, was one of the many candidates, almost every single one of them, that would have moved on from Rodgers, right? So he's not going to suggest that they bring him there. That wouldn't make any sense.
What about the Vikings if they don't get Sam Darnold? I feel like him and Kevin O'Connell could get along, huh? McCarthy might have a setback.
It all depends on where J.J. McCarthy is in terms of his rehab, but Kevin O'Connell told me that he's ahead of schedule. He said J.J.'s already weeks ahead, so I don't think they're going to have a lot of concern about that. But like you said, you'd never know. And remember, they've got Daniel Jones too. I think they're going to make an effort to keep Sam. I do, but they're going to probably get outpriced in the end. I'm curious from Sam's perspective too.
Getting that bag, dude. Good for you.
Good for him. Speaking of getting that bag, Brock Purdy is going to be getting that bag. The 49ers.
I just like you saying getting that bag. That's hilarious to me.
Oh, yeah, because that's really my
You said it twice
vernacular.
in about 10 seconds. All right,
getting
continue.
That bag.
It's so funny.
So the 49ers are really motivated to get a deal done. They've started negotiation conversations with Brock Purdy and Brock Purdy's camp. So I expect this thing to get moving, and we'll see if it gets complicated or difficult, but I don't think it will. I think this will be a situation.
Someone said something, and I thought it was ridiculous, and I don't even know where I saw it. Super Bowl week, 2 weeks is like news drop central, right? It's like, and I don't know what to believe or who not to believe. Maybe I'm making this up. Maybe I'm not. Someone said like Brock Purdy's going to get like Baker Mayfield money. He should. That's not true, right? He's going to get way more than that.
I think the 49ers are aware that he's worth more money than what Baker Mayfield is making at $40 million. So the number is higher. I just don't think it's going to go as high as 65 to reset the quarterback market. I think it's going to probably land in that 50s range, like a Trevor Lawrence type of deal. I think that's a win, right? For both sides.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's a huge win from the 49ers side, in my opinion. Because if you tell me what quarterback I want Brock Purdy times 10. No offense to Trevor Lawrence, but Trevor Lawrence is making 53, 55, like 55, 53, 55. Like, I'm surprised it's not in the high 50s.
Well, it could still go there.
Yeah, it could be.
It could get there. Yeah. But like you said, those 49ers have a lot of work to do on this roster coming off the year of the weird. So
weird. That's nice.
They granted Deebo Samuel permission to seek a trade, which this was like the worst kept secret in football, that they were going to move on from Deebo. So that tells you already that they're addressing this roster immediately to try to move money around so they can get some players, sign some guys in free agency, and really shed a lot of these expensive players.
I feel like his contract's not tradable though.
No, it's not.
Like,
that's
he's making a ton of money.
No one's going to pay him $19 million.
Yeah, 20, right?
Yeah. So then what do? Do you cut him?
They're gonna have to pay someone if they want to trade him, if they want something back, right?
That's going to probably be, if they really want to move him and get something in return.
Well, you're paying for a draft pick.
Correct. So where could Deebo land? Who would be willing to bring on Deebo?
Wow.
At the version he's at right now, right? He had it down here.
Down here, gadget guy. I'm thinking about all the teams that need receivers. I mean, Chargers might be something like that with Greg Roman. Hand him off in the backfield a lot. They don't really have, he's on a number one receiver.
What about the Raiders with Chip Kelly?
Yeah. I mean, that's better than the Chargers, so sure. I'm thinking about there's not like a lot of gadget dudes out there. What about, honestly, no, that wouldn't make sense. God, it's actually hard to find a landing spot for him.
Yeah. Here's my thing. What happened? There was a time where Deebo was a stud, and we just haven't seen that version.
Do you think it's Shanahan? This is, more philosophical. Do you think Shanahan just not wanting to use him as much, or Shanahan realizing he doesn't have it like he used to have 3 years ago in his 2021
all-pro season? I think it's the latter. I think it's the latter.
So if I'm a team, I'm not really. I'm not even paying him $10 million. To be honest with you, if you're seeing the ball, if you're seeing the field on 30-40% of the offensive snaps, I can't justify paying $20 million, let alone 10.
Well, we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. Remember, we still have Myles Garrett wanting a trade with the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns continue to say, we are not doing that. Teams have called the Browns from the AFC, from the NFC, and Andrew Berry's response has been, we're not trading him. Stay tuned, right? Because this is just where they're at now. But over the next few weeks, we'll see if teams are going to try to get their business in order before the start of the new league year. And we'll see if the San Francisco 49ers, the Cleveland Browns, just two of a lot of teams that have a lot of work to do. Because that's the time of year right now. As much as we're just coming off a full season of football, this is when the action starts. This is where all
I'm
the
about to put you on the
rosters are
spot
built.
before you go. What's the number one team you're looking forward to seeing what they're going to do this offseason in terms of either quarterback, player, trade, because we're getting into that season for you, because you're in the know for a lot of things.
For me, it's the New England Patriots. I want to see how they're going to build the pillars of this team. They've got tons of money to spend in the offseason. How are they going to use that money? Who are they going after?
Braves, spend that
are they
money.
Swinging big on a T. Higgins? I don't believe so. But who are they going after? Are they
so excited right there?
Are they going to focus on building the O-line? Like, hey, we can just play the Super Bowl back and say, guess what you need? Strength in the trenches, right? So I also just think what the New England Patriots are going to do this offseason is going to set them up for the next 3 to 4 years. So as much as it may not be super splashy names, and I'm not even sure they should do that, they need to find the players that are going to be the foundation building points that they can build around over the next few years and around Drake May. Because remember, this is another team that they want to take advantage of this rookie contract. All right, Scoop City is going to take a quick break, but I promise you want to hang right here. Drew Brees, who we've all seen his interviews, we've heard him talk, he's pretty buttoned up. He's fun, and he was amazing in New Orleans, just talking about the city and his time with the Saints. But he's even better talking about Chase. We'll be right back. So Chase, you don't really need to follow that many people in the media to know that New Orleans crushed, just absolutely crushed it. I think every person I spoke to when I'd catch up with everybody on the street or at parties, at dinners, we're just buzzing about how great a host city New Orleans is, which you predicted, by the way. You said that. You told me this weeks ago. You said New Orleans could be great. Food's great. It's easy to get around.
It needs to be in the rotation every 3-4 years. I think it's one of those cities for sure.
Oh, I agree. And I love the fact that Drew Brees was out in front, and Sean Payton as well, just talking about what makes New Orleans so special, and even educating fans about New Orleans for those that don't know it.
Yeah.
I loved when Drew was talking about how the hospitality of the South is so special, but there's a New Orleans hospitality, which is all week long. I can't tell you how nice people are. Sometimes
amazing.
I'm uncomfortable by it because
because you're from the Northeast where people suck.
What?
You're
Excuse
so
me.
mean up there. You are.
No, we're not.
You don't think you are because everyone else is mean to you. And when you came down there, you were uncomfortable because that's how people should be in the South.
Well, speak of mean, I really enjoyed this conversation with Drew Brees about you.
You are really good friends with my co-host Chase. You're also neighbors. You guys live very
We live
right on
down
the same
the block from
right on the
each
same
other.
street.
Yeah.
You pass each other. I know you guys text. So here's what I thought. I need some scoop on him. All right, because he complains a lot about his neighborhood, the landscape. It's just obnoxious things. So here's my questions for you. If you were to call him up because you needed some help from a neighbor, what would you be calling Chase for? Right. So you call him up, Chase, I need this. What are you calling Chase for?
Maybe if I need the dog poop cleaned up in my backyard, I'd call Chase over to take care of that for me.
When you two used to compete with each other all the time, there was apparently like a scoreboard above Chase's locker. Do you remember this? I know it was a while ago.
Yeah.
What was the score when you all were when said and done? What do you think the score was?
Well, do you know what we used to keep track of? Did Chase tell you what we used to keep track of on this scoreboard?
No, I don't know if I want to know this answer though.
No, we would get body fat tests.
He definitely won that one.
Every week.
Or lost it.
And we would notch that. Yeah. I don't remember Chase.
I entertained myself.
Body fat.
I entertained myself.
competition.
That's bullshit. I beat him
What's
once.
one thing? Look,
I
I've
beat
been
him
with Chase
once.
for 6 months now. He makes me better at my job. I find him so interesting. What's something that maybe you know about him that I probably haven't discovered yet about Chase?
All right.
I know he's cheap, by the way, so that can't be
first
that one.
off, I tell you what, man. I love Chase, and I loved his competitiveness. Like Chase was a guy who absolutely made the most out of his career. I mean, not to like, but you know, when we used to make fun of him because he walks in, I'm like, Chase, you're the only quarterback who is shaped like a high school nose guard, right? like what
It's
you've been
so
able to
true.
accomplish, you know, from high school, multiple state championships at South Lake Carroll. You go to Missouri, you end up being number 1 in the country. You're a Heisman Trophy candidate. And then you have like a 15-year NFL, 16-year NFL career. I'm like, well, how is this possible? I said, but this is what I would always bust on Chase for. Chase was the most high-maintenance dude when it came to the training room. Like, every time I'd look up, Chase is in the training room and he's getting dry needled, or he's getting like, you know, Normatec compression sleeves, or like, you know, a trainer's massaging his shoulder. And I'm like, Chase, like, how many snaps have you played this season? Like, don't you think those resources could be better utilized on somebody who's like actually running down on kickoff, or like taking some hits? I'm like, you know, I know you're throwing some balls, you know, on scout team here, and like lifting weights, you know, and, you know, trying to look like a high school nose guard, but like, can we please save those resources for guys that are playing?
Yeah, well, my takeaway is he's soft. That is soft like your bounty. Drew,
I'm just busting on you, Chase. You know I love you, buddy.
He's the guy. Who's taller, by the way? I don't even know. Who's taller? You?
That is an absolute insult.
You hit a chord on that one. He hates it. I'm the
I
same
am
height
tell
as
me
him.
he's 6'3".
I'm at least a quarter inch taller than Chase. At least.
Depends on what shoes he's wearing. I think he wears one of those.
That's
you know, those,
right. I think he wears I think he's got a little
those little
platform
things with
in
little
his
heels,
shoes.
little
Yeah,
heel.
we're gonna check that next time.
Drew,
Chase, don't be sneaking that on me, bro.
Thank you so much
I know
for
all your
hanging
tricks.
out. Come hang
Yeah,
out
it's
with
fun.
us on Scoop City. We love you. We
let's do
appreciate
it.
you.
I mean, look, Chase right on the show. I could literally just bust. I could
pull-
just bust in his house and
Stop by, have a
hang
cocktail
out in the
together,
office.
hop on, and
tell him to pull up an extra chair. I'll be
yeah,
there.
I would love some breakdowns from you. I learn a lot from him, but I know I can probably learn from someone like you who knows as much as you do. Thanks so much for hanging out. So good to see you.
Yeah,
You're the best.
you too. Thank you.
So I realized I was really mean in that interview. I'm so sorry, Chase.
The whole takeaway is like, Drew is brotherly love. You are on another level of mean. I didn't even care about what Drew said. You were the one egging him on, trying to get stuff out of him.
You know what it is? You hadn't arrived in New Orleans yet. And I think I was getting like antsy. I wanted you to get into town. I wanted to talk to you.
You're such a liar. Stop lying.
I wanted to hang
You were
out with
mean.
you. I was
You're
missing
trying to
you.
cover up your tracks.
No, that's actually very reflective of how I operate.
You know
in life.
what? I've known you for a while. You're a really good bullshitter. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. Like, you just can't do it. So anyway, the high maintenance stuff, I will agree with. The shape like a nose guard stuff, I will not agree with. The high maintenance stuff, though, it came from Drew. That's the genesis of the whole thing. Is like, he would always be in the training room because he's a Hall of Fame player getting needled. And so he's like, Chase, you need to get in after me. You need to make sure your shoulder's ready. You need to So I was like, okay. And now he's doesn't like it, I guess. I don't know.
He's fun. You're going to be able to see more.
He's hilarious, honestly.
So next episode, we're going to play some more of that interview. But also, we had tons of people stopping by that we haven't been able to share here on Scoop City because we've just been talking about the game. We've had so much going on. Drake May, Kirk Cousins, Chop Robinson, Fred Warner, amazing interview. Will Anderson Jr., Gronk. Gronk was out of his mind. So we talked a lot about this upcoming season with these guests, things that are going to be happening in the off season, what they expect these teams to be doing. So next episode, I want to essentially just play the best of for you guys here in Scoop City. So I hope you guys check that out. So let's do this. Let's wrap it up. We did it. We got through the season. So let's just give our 2024 final thoughts. Your takeaway when we look back on our first year as a Scoop City team and we say, all right, that football season taught us what?
Wow. That is a great question. I'm not super reflective on the season because I feel like it went fast, yet it went so slow. And when you're doing like covering the media like you and I are, I feel like so many things can get lost, right? Because I feel like the start of the season, there really wasn't because you and I were talking about this, there really wasn't a ton of storylines. It was like, here's what's happening until like week 6 or 7. And then the Dallas Cowboys started doing stuff. And then the rookie quarterback started balling. All of a sudden, Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels. And I think that's probably my biggest takeaway is the rookie quarterback class. I mean, there were 6 guys. Penix played. The only guy that didn't play is J.J. McCarthy, right? Bo Nix became a stud, which, last quarterback drafted in the first round, you're thinking he got picked over by so many different teams. Sean Payton and the Broncos were a really pleasant surprise. Obviously, the story of the year, in my opinion, outside of the Super Bowl winning Eagles, is Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. What Jaden Daniels has been able to do, how he's been able to do it. And then you look toward this past hiring cycle, which I include in the 2024 season, Ben Johnson going to Chicago. Can he get the best out of Caleb Williams? What is that going to look like? Because Chicago is starving for a winner. I mean, I tend to go toward quarterbacks. There was a ton of other storylines. But those probably were my main ones.
For me, it's a little simpler. I think we get caught up in so much of the quarterback play and receivers and, which star defender is doing what. But then when it comes down to it, the good teams with good protection and good offensive line play are playing in the Super Bowl and they're winning. And I think it's a good lesson to remember for next season when we're getting caught up in perhaps some of the fireworks of it. It's boring sometimes to say it this way. It's boring to go, all right, we're going to worry about, offensive line, no disrespect. Man. But that's what it is, especially with so much of the game now going a little old school. So that'll do it for us here on Scoop City. Thank you to everyone hanging out with us all season long. Thank you to the people that came up to us, fans of football that have tuned in to our show. I was overwhelmed with how many people are checking us out on YouTube and commenting.
Yeah, people love you for sure.
What? No, they don't. I think people like the formula of the show, which is getting some intel and things that people are talking about mixed with so much of the experience and insight that you bring. And we're still working on this thing. We're still working on improving it. And I love the feedback that people have been giving about the dynamic between us and the things that they love us discussing. And we'll continue to be open to it. But officially, after our first full football season, I'm really proud of what we're doing here. And we love our Scoop City team. And we love everyone behind the scenes. But to think we started this show in Kansas City, talking to that team about going for a three-peat. And here we are.
First interview.
Yep. And obviously Saquon Barkley was a big part of our growth here. And it was really cool to talk to him after the game because he's one of those players that just never forgets. I think people that support him. And I think this show has done a really good job of that. So thank you guys for supporting us. We will see you guys next show.
Bye, guys. Tag me next time.
Thanks for tuning into Scoop City. If you want to hear more, make sure you like and subscribe. We drop our new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.